Welcome to the Well Seasoned Librarian Podcast. This is Season 7, Episode 17. I'm so happy and blessed to be doing this podcast. And one of the really neatest things is being able to have guests on that I've had on before. And I've had Laurel on earlier in the podcast history last year and a couple times. And she's just been such a wonderful guest and somebody I feel over time has become a friend. And I've really just been so happy to be able to see, her first book come to fruition, which was Kitchen Witchery, and to see it happen and publish, and then to see her have her second book by Llewellyn, Backyard Garden Witchery, that is out now, right now, as of yesterday, out as well. And just to be able to read them and to talk to her and find out about her process and what the experience was like, and to talk to her about gardening and cooking, two things that I love, as you know. So it's just, I always have to marvel at how lucky I am to be able to do this podcast and be able to have people listen to it and discover these wonderful authors as I do. It's just a thrill to me. When I worked in bookstores originally, I got to talk to authors and meet them and get to see their books come out and celebrate their books and give them to people and encourage people to read the books. And it's something that kind of propelled me to become a librarian, because I always love the experience of recommending books to people and then getting the feedback later on and having them be so happy they read it. So I just am so thrilled to see Laurel, have her books come out and be able to talk to her about them and talk to her about upcoming projects as well. I hope you're as thrilled as I have been to have this conversation with Laurel, and I know you will be. If you get a chance, her book Kitchen Witchery and Backyard Garden Witchery are just fantastic. They're available as of this recording, and you're just going to love them. So without further ado, I'm going to go to my conversation with my friend Laurel Woodward to talk about her brand new book by Llewellyn, out now, Backyard Garden Witchery. And as always, we're going to have a link for this book on the bio information. Here we go. Welcome to the Well Seasoned Librarian Podcast. I'm your host, Dean Jones. Today we have returning to the podcast a guest who's been on a few times before. Laurel Woodward has a new book out right now, Backyard Garden Witchery, Creating Magical Space Outside Your Door. Laurel, welcome back to the program.
Why, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, you've been on the program before, but for our listeners who are new and that may not have met you before, can you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Well, as you know, I'm a pagan living a magical life in the Pacific Northwest. My first book, Kitchen Witchery, was a recipe book with a focus on the magic of food and how each and every ingredient in our kitchen has a magical correspondence that can be applied to work magic, to charm, sweeten, or heal, to nurture, to comfort, or even compel. This year, my book, Backyard Garden Witchery, publishes, and I'm very excited about it.
Now, backward, let me try again. I'll edit that part out. Backyard Kitchen Witchery is your second book. How does it feel to have two books done? Did you ever dream this would happen to you?
I am in such a fantastic place right now. And no, I never believed that I would be like I am right now. Not only do I have these two books coming out, but I just signed a contract with Llewellyn for a third book, and I'm doing 12 recipes for the Llewellyn's Witches Date book for 2024. So it's super exciting stuff. But it's not like I just hand in a manuscript and it goes. It's a big project, and they take me on as a project. How it works is I turn in a manuscript, it's accepted, and I sign a contract. And then the manuscript goes before a vision board, and it's discussed, and ideas are thrown around. And then I'm presented with the notes from those meetings, and I start a revision to incorporate those notes. And I hand it back 2 or 3 times. And then it goes to my editor, who goes through the whole thing with me, and we work through it and turn it into these gorgeous volumes.
So what inspired you to write Backyard Garden Witchery? Was this a book you'd always wanted to write?
I Yes, it was because I grew up cooking and gardening. For me, they go hand in hand. They're two of my passions. They were my dad's passions. Um, and they were inspiring and fulfilling to work on as projects. Both kitchen witchery and backyard witchery evolved from a magical compendium that I put together over the years. I have a fascination for the history and the lore of the plants in my garden. And after I completed Garden Witchery, my editor said, "Have you got anything else?" And at the time, I had two mostly completed manuscripts. I told her I have a garden book and I want on energy. And she said, "Send me the garden book."
You talk in the book about the restorative power of nature. What does this mean for you?
Well, nature is the great restorer. We go to nature to escape the chaos of the world. We evolved in nature, and when we submerge ourselves in the green sights and natural sounds, our minds clear and our spirits quiet. To experience nature is a full-on sensory experience that elicits a response deep within us. The engagement creates a shift to elevate mood and spark wonder. And nature becomes a magical gateway that transports us to a therapeutic zone where we are able to decompress and quiet worry. It nourishes the soul. And research today is showing that a dose of green space not only improves mood, it increases self-esteem and reduces anxiety. So on a physical level, being in nature lowers blood pressure and reduces stress hormones. It even enhances the immune system function. Its submersion in nature is positive therapy with the power to alleviate worry, anxiety, and depression as it exposes us, the exposure lifts us out of our small, overstressed lives and exposes us to the realness of something that is so much more.
We had talked a little bit earlier before we started recording about how I'm a novice gardener and I'm learning. And you talk about two things in your book that I'm trying to grasp but I'm not very good at, and that's cloning plants and seed savings. Can we talk about your practice for this and what you do for this?
Oh yeah, I've always saved seeds. Yeah, I'm always been a big user of what I have. Not go out and buy stuff, but use what I have. And some seeds are just so easy to save, like poppies and hollyhocks. They have seed pods you can just collect. A lot of foods we eat, like tomatoes and peppers and squashes, winter squashes, have big seeds that are easy to scrape out and rinse and dry and save, and then plant the next season. And in doing this, you always have a big supply of the plants that you like for free. And cloning is the same way. If you have one mother plant, like a favorite dahlia, you can take cuttings and create 100 clones from that one plant. Not, of course, at the same time, but as the plant grows. And in cloning, you want to do it in the morning when the plant is turgid or full of moisture. And the main thing you don't want to do is let it dry out. So you want to take your cutting in the morning, you want to put it immediately into planting medium and water it, and then put it out of the sunlight in a spot where you can see it, where as you come across it, you can mist it whenever you spot it. And a plant has an amazing ability to turn a leaf node into a root node, so that when you take your cutting and you clip off the little leaves at the bottom and tuck it into the soil, it just grows roots. It is like magic. I love cloning and saving seeds. Every gardener should practice that or try to.
I was really thrilled to see your chapter on weeds in there, because I recently we've had nothing but a nightmare trying to weed our garden and keep it weed free. And I guess my wife has this app where she can like look at a plant and tell what it is. It's really cool. And
I have that too.
yeah, it's so wonderful. And we were curious, like, what are some of these weeds? And we found out some of them were edible, like miner's lettuce and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of thrilling. So can you talk to us about this chapter of weeds and what maybe gardeners get wrong about weeds?
Yeah, a lot of weeds are actually important plants that were brought here for a purpose, for medicine or food or a magical ingredient. a weed is just a plant that is very successful in your area, or a plant that grows where you don't want it to. That's one of the definitions. So if you look at the weeds growing in your area, you will be surprised to find that it might have been included as invasive or non-native, but it has lots of benefits. For instance, a weed like burdock, it's a member of the thistle family. It's native to Siberia, but it's naturalized just about everywhere. And that's because the leaves and roots and seeds have been used for healing properties since the Middle Ages. The Chinese used the roots and seeds as traditional medicine. Then they introduced the burdock to the Japanese, who incorporated the crunchy texture into their cooking. It made its way to America and it became a weed. Even though European folk medicine considered it a blood purifier and used the leaves to ease headaches and accelerate the healing of burns. Magically, burdock's associated with Saturn and Pluto, and it's a prominent motif in a lot of Turkish rugs for the protection against the evil eye. The root carries protection. The large leaves can be worn and carried to ward off negative energy. It's a very useful plant if you get to know it.
This episode is sponsored by Culinary Historians of Northern California, a Bay Area educational group dedicated to the study of food, drink, and culture and human history. To learn more about this organization and their work, please visit their website at www.chnorcal.org. We've recently set off a portion of our garden for the land spirits to kind of have as their own. And you talk in your book about land spirits and how to honor them. This is something I'm always interested in finding out more about, how we can do better with this. Can you talk to us a bit about this?
Yeah, I'm fascinated with land spirits. When I first started gardening, I always had a natural area and I thought of it as my fairy area. I'm an animist, so I see, I talk to my plants and hug my trees and talk to the birds flying overhead. And I see the plants as sentient beings, and that my idea of them as fairies was easy to visualize. But since then, they've taken on a wilder, larger energy, and now I'm more into the spirit of the field, or the spirit of the garden, or this household spirits. As an embodiment of the trees and of the area, or the dead who came before us, or there's a lot of possibilities of what it can be, but it is a sentient force that is there. And if we feed it our energy and talk to it and leave it offerings, we can forge a relationship with the spirit of the field, or the spirit of the garden, or household spirits, and make them part of our practice. And in doing so, it increases our relationship and feeds them power, and they become more. And this is good, and also it you have to do it respectfully, though, or you can create a haunting if you're not careful.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. But I love working. I'm fascinated with land spirits, and I'm always looking for a way to work with them in my practice.
I've done libations like milk or ale, and I've also given offerings of honey. I was wondering if there's any other things you could recommend.
Oh, yes. In fact, I like to bake special loaves of bread, often in the shape of a man, to leave for the spirit of the field.
I like that.
There's if you look at the spirit you're working with, you'll be guided towards an offering. If it's a plant spirit, you could do ash, or a handful of ash, or a compost, or a rainwater. If it's my barn spirit is symbolized by this barn cat that lives out there. He's a force, and I feed him and take care of him, and to me he symbolizes the spirit of the barn. So if we subscribe or ascribe, if we ascribed characteristics to the spirit, then it will direct our offerings as to what it likes. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that helps a lot. Now, for me, I have a very small garden, and the thought of like filling it with chemical pesticides or chemical fertilizers is really unattractive. Aside from the fact that I have concerns about health issues and stuff from it. So I'm trying to use stuff that's healthy, like diatomaceous earth and sprays that are considered organic. Can we talk a bit about organic pesticides and sprays? I mean, I've had the heartbreak this spring of like waking up to, devastation from slugs or other critters. Can we talk a bit about this?
Yeah, part of it is you have to stay up on it. And once any sort of infestation gets a handle, it's really hard to deal with. I lost a whole Brussels sprouts crop one time to aphid infestation. They were in every layer, you just couldn't deal with it. But dahlia, my slug started just assaulting my dahlias last year, and I went on a rampage of putting out dishes of beer for them, and it worked very well. I mean, it's kind of sad that they all had to drown, but it was their choice. They drowned in the beer.
They died happy.
Yeah, they did. But I use neem oil. I use a spray bottle of sudsy water made with a teaspoon of dish soap, sometimes some oil, and some water for aphids and things like that. There are, if you take a look at how many home gardeners there are, if we all as a force stop using poisons, the butterflies and bees and the small creatures that inhabit our gardens would have a much better chance to have a successful population in our land, our area. Plus, it's so much healthier for our pets and ourselves and our children. I don't use any pesticides or sprays in my garden, except for like a neem oil or a natural one.
I loved many of the recipes that you had in the book, and there are a few that were near and dear to my heart, like the rhubarb chutney, which I really want to try, and the luscious garden tomato pie. That looks like it'd be a winner for my family. Can we talk about your choosing the recipes for the cookbook, and what was your process like for trying some of them out?
Oh, that's a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun. I used all my favorite recipes in Kitchen Witchery. So I did have to come up with new things and find leftover things that I hadn't used, because you can't reprint from a book, they don't let you do that. So I would, I like to use, I always have a bounty in my garden, and I'm always on the search for how to use it in a new and inspiring way. And that's how the tomato pie one came out, because I had a gazillion tomatoes and I was tired of sauces and salads and things. And it is pretty tasty. It is luscious. I'm always looking for new zucchini, because pretty much in zucchini season, I eat one a day. So I love collecting recipes and trying out new recipes and, creating new recipes. For the Llewellyn thing, it was a trick, because I had to come up with something that was seasonal. And I did 2 for each month, and I sent them to my editor and let her choose. And then she sent them back her choices, and I created the recipes from them. I cooked them all. I tried them all out. And then I had to make them all under 200 words to fit in the template. And when you're doing something like a homemade pizza, with making a pizza dough, that's kind of hard. But it was a lot of fun.
How are you currently getting ready in this season for the next season?
Well, I just now got my garden in the ground, and I'm actually still planting. I'm planting out roots, and I just got parsnips and carrots in, and cabbage, and I'm going to do onions, I hope, today. Um, yeah, so I'm not even thinking of next season yet. I'm still full force in this one. My poor starts that I started back in March, I just now got into the ground. And that's one thing that this late spring season has really shown me the benefit of raised beds,
Yeah.
because raised beds you can plant anytime, as soon as the nights are not too cool to kill off your or to make your squashes and things go into dormancy. As soon as the nights warm up, your soil's ready to plant. Also, slugs don't creep as much into a raised bed as they do just a garden bed.
Yeah.
It makes a nice barrier. Yeah, it's really, I do love having a field to plant in, but raised beds have a lot of good benefits.
No, I totally agree. And plus they're a little bit higher off the ground, so you have to stoop so low, which is
Right.
important in my age. But I, uh, many of us pagans celebrate seasonal festivals throughout the year. And I know for many of us, myself especially, Lammas, the first harvest is very important. How do you celebrate the first harvest, and what do you do?
Well, yeah, Lammas is the first of the 3 autumn harvest festivals in the season of ripening. At this time, my garden's almost always brimming with tomatoes and squash and corn that's ready for harvest. And I love to use this abundance at mealtime, and I'm always on the lookout for a new recipe to use it. For me, Lammas has always been a day of baking. I always make a special Lammas loaf, usually with wheat and corn. I like to use corn flour or cornmeal in it. Often it's in the shape of a sun or a man. And I almost always make one for my family and then leave one out for the spirit of my garden.
I love that.
It's important to show your thanks for the garden, for its abundance, and for the sacrifice that was made for your food. And as this marks a time of transformation, signaling the coming shift from harvest tide to resting tide, it's the baking of the bread and the leaving of the loaf is just such a fitting ritual for me.
What's next for you?
Well, I'm waiting for the notes back for my well-being book, and then I'm going to start a big revision for it. And I just handed in this 12 recipes for the Witches Date book, which was really, I was honored that they asked me to do that. But I have a new manuscript I just started called The Care and Feeding of Household Spirits.
Ooh.
And I'm having a lot of fun with that. And I'm thinking that part of it is going to be a collection of other practitioners' practices, 1 or 2 pages on their background and what they do. It's just brewing in my head right now. And it's wanting to come out. It's wanting to manifest.
I always like to ask authors, so since you've been working for Llewellyn, have you been able to meet any of the authors that you used to read and now you're kind of a member of the same publishing house?
I've gotten to be on different panels with some of them, which is just amazing. It's just fantastic. But with this whole COVID thing, it hasn't been the same experience that it used to be.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that will change. And I would love to meet some of the authors have a dinner with them and just listen to them and just hear their ideas.
I like to ask this last cheeky question of all my guests, and I don't. If it's a kind of one of those, if applicable, what are you making for dinner tonight?
Oh, it's still cold here, so I've been craving green chili, and I have a roast that I just bought, and some big fat organic Anaheim chilies that I'm going to roast and make a big pot of delicious green chili.
Nice. That sounds lovely.
What are you making?
Actually, I'm not going to be home, so my wife's cooking. She's making tortellini. But yeah,
Oh,
there's a couple nights per week that I'm not home. But like last night we had ribs and stuff like that, and I did barbecue.
mm.
So that was fun. I don't get to do a lot of barbecuing because we try and spare the air and everything. But I made an exception yesterday and did some barbecuing.
Yeah, it sounds nice. Well, it's a traditional 4th of July thing.
Yeah, I'm new at barbecuing, so I'm kind of been afraid of it. I've been kind of doing it slowly, but I'm getting better at it. And yesterday's ribs did not burn, so that was nice.
Nice.
Laurel, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. I've really enjoyed getting a chance to talk to you again.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
That was my conversation with Laurel Woodward. Her book, Backyard Garden Witchery, is out now. We have links to it on the bio. I hope you all enjoyed that podcast. I always enjoy recording them. I love getting feedback from you, so you can go to the link for feedback if you like. If we always encourage people to share this podcast with their friends, and I hope you do. You can always just use links to this episode and put it on social media, and people can go to it and listen. If you follow the program on Spotify or Apple iTunes, you'll get notified when new episodes show up. Hope you all have a really great week and cook up something really great. I'll be back with you next week with a new guest. I want to give thanks to Kitty Cat Fan Club from Asian Man Records, who has allowed us to use their song Talk About Love as their intro and outro. I really love Asian Man Records. You can always find really great groups on there. Go to their website, asianmanrecords.com, and you can find out about all kinds of bands. You can buy albums, you can buy t-shirts, you can buy bumper stickers or hoodies. There's a lot of great stuff there. Check it out. Have a really great week, and until you hear me again, keep on cooking.
I've been getting